All right, welcome back. It's Mark with CareQuest Solutions. On today's show, we have Sonya Link and Donna Deaver, two sisters. They're going to come on here and share their stories, a little bit of background. Donna is an LVN and licensed social worker. Sonya has a bachelor's degree in marketing. She also is a colleague of mine, and we work together. Sonya is the regional director in marketing of sales over numerous assisted living community. So, with that said, let's kick this off and we will have Donna and Sonya join us and they can share their story. All right, we are here. We had some technical difficulties. We were actually shooting our live show together, and Mother Nature came along and did not like what we're doing because we're doing great things together, right? And then the internet went out. So that's the wonderful side of technology. So, Sonya, Donna, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And if you would, let's tell us a little bit about yourself, Sonya. So we'll start with you, and then Donna will let you jump in there. So just give us a bit of background about yourself, Sonya.
Sure. So I have a bachelor's degree in marketing, and I started off in the, for the television world. I worked at a CBS affiliate and then an NBC affiliate in Texas, and then stayed home for several years with children. Have four children. So when they were little, I stayed home with them, and then jumped into senior living when I went back into the workforce. And part of that is because of the story we're going to tell here today, with my father with having Alzheimer's, and we'll get into that story. But that's sort of what prompted me to even start into the senior living, and I've been doing that now for a little over 10 years.
Excellent. Donna, what about yourself? What's your background?
Well, I graduated from nursing school in 1979. Um, I was a nurse for around 20 years when I decided to go back to be a social worker.
Mm-hmm.
I had my bachelor's in social work. I'm licensed. I've worked in social work with children, mostly with Child Protective Service and a homeless
Mm-hmm.
shelter for children, and hospice. The last social work job I had was in hospice. So that prepared me quite a bit for my mother.
Yeah. Yeah. You get to see a lot of unfortunate, situations and some good stuff too. But Sonya, you as well. We come across all sorts of circumstances and things that families are going
That's
through.
been
And
my job.
yeah, yeah. So with that said, I think we can all relate to the fact of even though we do this, and it's a lot easier to help other families when we find ourselves facing it directly with our own families. It's a little bit more stressful, or definitely can be. I think it does help to have some background in the industry because you kind of exposed to it and you kind of know what to expect and what to do. But the weight gets heavy when it's your own loved ones. And I'm going through that, of course, with my family as we speak. So if you guys want to kind of jump in and give a backstory to the beginning of this, I think you both said it started with your father. And that was about 25, 30 years ago.
20 or so years ago, wouldn't you say, Donna?
Maybe, yes,
So
somewhere around there.
there
So
was,
just kind of noticing some things with his memory, or were y'all concerned about
Yeah,
that?
we
Or
noticed something wrong with him a little.
okay, all right.
we did, and I mean, Donna, jump in, but we noticed things like he would repeat the same story with the same enthusiasm, like 3 or 5 times, because he'd clearly forgotten that he told it.
Mm,
So it was things like that, which you kind of just brush that off and go, well, I mean, he's getting older, I guess.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Began to, um, go out and like just drive to town in his car, and he would be gone for 5 hours. And what happened is he got lost and couldn't find his way home.
Mm. And that had to be scary.
That's when we really began to go, something's not right.
Yeah. And Don, I think you both would agree, just like with my mom, a lot of people may not understand, because I'm learning as we go as well, that when you start noticing things and you're not sure what it is at the time, if it is an issue with Alzheimer's or dementia, is just agree with them. Don't let them know that they don't know what they're saying,
Exactly.
because because like when mom will say, like, today I'm out there and we live in Jonesboro, and they've been here all my life. And she goes, when are we going to be moving back to Jonesboro? And I'm like, whenever you want to, when you're ready, you just have to go along with it. She thinks, the
Yes.
other day she thought dad was her dad. So,
It doesn't
a
do
lot of
any good to argue and tell them the real thing, and it just upsets them.
It does, and it scares them. It can scare them and make it worse. So that's
Yes.
just kind of throwing that out there in the conversation for those that may not be aware. So when that first started happening, your mom was, of course, taking care of your dad and did that for the most part. And then when did that change? And I think, Sonya, you had moved him. They were in Texas, and you'd already moved to Georgia. So
Right. Right. So we were in Texas when all this first happened, but then we moved to Georgia. That's when we moved to Georgia. That's why I'm kind of going, I think it was about 20 years ago, that it began to get a lot worse. And gosh, I'd only been out here for about a year when it was so bad. Mom would not put him in a memory care, was not
mhm,
happen. So my sister and I, along with my mom's two sisters, my mom has two sisters, one older, one younger, who she's very close with. And we all kind of talked, didn't we, Donna? And we're like, how can we best help her? We were finding that she wasn't spending a lot of time at home. She would put dad in the car and drive to my sister's, or she'd be home for a couple of days and then go to like my aunt's house
mhm,
for a couple of days. She came out, they flew out to here to Georgia and stayed for nearly a month over Christmas. So she wasn't staying home very much because she really couldn't handle it by herself. It was too much for her.
right.
So
Well, he wanted to drive the car and would argue because she wouldn't give him the keys. She
Yeah.
knew better at that point when he was so bad. You can't give him the keys.
Yeah.
There's nowhere, no, where will he go?
Yeah.
And he got out one day. It only happened one day, but he started walking to town. 90 something degree weather,
Mm,
2-lane road out at the lake toward town. And he just walked. And of course, they knew everybody in town and out at the lake. So here comes someone, and it was their neighbor, and he saw him and he stopped him. And of course, Daddy wouldn't get in his car. He said, "No, I'm fine, I'm fine." And finally, they called the Graham police, and they all knew Daddy too. He had taught most of them algebra when he
mm,
was younger. And they were real nice to him and got him in the car and took him home. So that was when it was really bad. She should have put him in a placement in a nursing home.
yeah.
right, that's where he needed to go, but she would not do it. So
Mm-mm.
it was kind of decided that they would move in with someone. And
Yeah.
that ended up being me, and it was really me because I was home at that time with the young children, so I was home all day. So I was going to be the most help to her. Um,
Right.
in my house, so they moved in, and so
Yeah.
that really got my firsthand experience of taking care of an Alzheimer patient,
Mhm.
taking care of the loved one who was mostly caring for them as well. So
Yeah.
a hands-on, training that I had for 4 years.
Yeah.
So and that was all working fine until one day mom, it was one morning actually, she was coming down the stairs and she tripped on the last two steps and fell and broke her hip.
Mm.
So now
And
mom's going to the hospital. I mean, I immediately got the ambulance here. They took her off to the hospital, and there I am with dad.
yeah.
Couple of hours. I mean, in a few hours, I have to pick up children from elementary school.
Right. Yeah. That life keeps going on.
It does. It does. And of course,
Yeah.
my at work. So I called my sister immediately and I'm like, okay, here's the situation. What do we need to do? And this is kind of how Donna and I've done a lot of things with mom and dad. And I hope other siblings do this too. We sort of divide and conquer.
Yeah.
Okay, mom has to be here. I went to the hospital. I'm talking to my sister from the hospital. I said, okay, they're going to operate. They're getting her ready to operate. And then she'll be in the hospital for a few days. Then she's got to go to rehab for several weeks. So she can't leave, but I also can't watch dad and come to the hospital with her and take care of 4 young children. So we got dad back to my sister's, and that's where she took over with dad. And Donna, I'll let you start.
So did he move in with you?
Daddy came down and moved in with me, is what happened. And I took care of him. I noticed I couldn't do that very long and keep a job.
Yeah.
So I happened to be working at a nursing home at that time, though.
Mm-hmm.
So I placed him there where I worked at. So I got to see him 5 days a week.
Right.
During my work time.
That was a little of a blessing in a way, right? I mean,
It
because
was totally a blessing.
that took a lot of pressure off. And so, what was going on? Oh, here's the thunder coming. Hope the internet don't go out on us again. So, so your mother stayed with you, Sonya, or did she get discharged?
Well, so she was here at Piedmont. Since you're here from this area, she was at Piedmont for about a week, and then they sent her to rehab. And I'm trying to remember where they sent her. I know that all of the close rehabs were full. It just happened to be. And so where they sent her was nearly an hour away. So I would go visit her every day. I would get children off to school. I would go out and stay with her for 2 or 3 hours and then drive back in time to pick the kids up from school. And that went on for 3 or 4 or 5 weeks. I don't remember how long it was. Do you, Donna? It was at least a month.
Okay.
Yeah, and so and in the meantime, my sister's taking care of dad and has him where she's working, but he is getting worse.
Right.
And so we needed to get mom better to the point where she could get on a plane and fly out to see dad, because it really felt like we were getting close to the end and we wanted her to be there with him. So that was sort of our everyday talking. How's dad doing? How's mom doing? How much worse is dad? How much better is mom, so she can get out?
Yeah. And daddy got worse. And I remember calling. I said, she needs to come out here now. He'd gone to the hospital. They had to send him from the nursing home to the hospital. And I felt like you just never know how long it's going to be. And mama needs to be here. She still was doing therapy. But she was toward the end of it. She didn't have much left. So they got her out here to me, and she was at that nursing home every day with daddy.
Wow.
Until he passed away.
And how long had they been married at that time?
52 years, I believe.
Wow.
54 years.
Something like that. So they were high school sweethearts. My mom was a freshman. My dad was a senior.
Wow.
14. I mean, she told me, she said, I've never even dated. I've never even been on a date with anybody but your dad my whole life.
So that's special though. That's really special. So, so your father passed, and then did your mom, did she get placed, or did she stay with you, Donna, or what?
Yes, she stayed with me from then on out. She stayed in Texas. She didn't go back out to Georgia. She just stayed with me until she really needed to be in a place of her own. She didn't want to live with one of her kids, and she kept saying that. So I tried to get her to go into an independent living facility.
Right.
But she wouldn't go. No, I'm not. That's for old people, and I'm not going to do it. And I explained to her exactly what it was. I said, this is independent living. It's your own little apartment, and it's right there in a big building where all these people are. You walk out your front door, and there are people.
Yeah.
She finally, I kind of had to use reverse psychology on her a little bit, but, well, if you don't want to go, that's okay with me. I mean, do what you want. But I talked to the marketer, and the market was very, very good. She said, I can get her in here. And I
Mm,
said, well, if you do, you're a miracle worker.
yeah.
And she got her in there in
Oh,
almost no
wow.
time. She gave her a free lunch with three other little ladies that were real nice and had their mind. And it was a real beautiful place. Baby grand piano, big chandelier. She gave her money to help on the move. They put furniture in the room until she could get hers down here. She gave her
Wow.
all this stuff, and Mama signed it and wrote a check right then.
Wow. Was there an adjustment period or did she jump in and enjoy it?
Was she what now?
I said, was there an adjustment period after she moved in or did she like it
Yes,
from
a
that
little
point
bit.
forward?
Yes,
Yeah.
actually, there was. Yes, I
Yeah.
had to take her to the hospital. She hadn't been there but about a week, maybe not even that long. And she decided she wanted to take a bath, not a shower, in her bathtub because
Mm,
she'd not been doing that. She'd always had a shower. She couldn't get in the bathtub. And I don't know what made her think she could then, but she got in it, but she couldn't get out of it.
okay.
And it, it just, she had an episode. She
Yeah.
was freaking out and she got out
Very
and
panicked.
I came over. She called me and told me, Donna, something's wrong with me. I'm just walking around trying to get dressed for the last 2 hours. I go to the closet and then I go to the living room and I don't know what
Oh,
I'm doing. Something's wrong. And I said, okay, Mama, I'm on my way. And I didn't live very far from there at all,
yeah.
just across town. So I came in and I grabbed some clothes out of the closet and I told her specifically, you're having a stroke, Mama. Because if I wouldn't have told her that, she wouldn't have gone.
Okay.
I mean, I didn't want to scare her into a worse
Yeah.
stroke, but if I wouldn't have said something, she just wouldn't have gone to the ER. So she did go to the ER. It was fine. They got it stopped in time, got her blood pressure down, and she went back. And then she began to meet people in the dining room and have friends
Mhm.
and got more used to going up to her room and coming out to the other people. And there was not a problem after that.
Mm,
Right. I will
okay.
tell you this. So, Mark, backing up just a little, it took about a year to get her into the independent living, didn't it?
Mhm.
Okay. Wow.
About a year. I mean, at first she talked about, I'm going to just get a house by myself. Okay. Um,
Mhm.
she didn't want to live alone. She really, really, really didn't. She'd never been alone. She was afraid to be alone. Um, she would go to her one sister's house and stay for a week, and then go to another sister's house and stay for a week, and then back to Donna's house for a week. I mean, she was just constantly going. She had a best friend. She'd go stay with her for a few nights, and she did that for a year and didn't know what to do and wasn't going to go even check out independent living because that was for old people, and she was only 71, so she was.
Yeah. So it took a year. Then how long was she in independent living, and did she have to go into assisted or memory care from there eventually, or?
And that's where the story, that's what we're going to talk about. So she stayed there for 14 years, right, Donna?
Right.
Wow.
15 years.
14 years.
She was the one person that had stayed there the longest. Nobody else had been in that place that long.
Wow.
Right.
Right.
And it should have been, Mark. That's just what we're going to talk about here. At least 2 years ago, we both noticed, my sister and I both said, she needs assisted living. We both knew it.
Hmm.
Two things happened there, Mark. First of all, she wouldn't go. She said, I'm not leaving here. I don't need assisted living.
Mm,
All of my friends are here. She wanted to stay where she was, which I
yeah.
understand that she wanted to stay. But the second thing is, this independent living place would not give her a move out notice and say, you need to go to assisted living. And that
Yeah.
kind of shows, and that's sort of an industry thing where sometimes when your occupancy is low, you don't
Yeah.
tell someone to move out. You kind of go, well, they're okay, they're fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she
So
was,
yeah. Yeah. So how long did that go back and forth before she did eventually go into assisted living, and what was the breaking point that she did?
she never did go to assisted living. That's
Oh,
the
never did.
No, she never
Like,
did. That went on for about 2 years, and this past November, mom had a UTI. So
Okay.
sister was there and she saw her, every few days. I was out here, but I talked to her on the phone every day,
Mm.
usually to and from work, that kind of thing. I would give her a quick call. How you doing today? That sort of thing. So one day I called her and she says, "Oh, I have a UTI." And this was maybe a week before Thanksgiving, this past Thanksgiving. I said, "Oh," I said, "Well, you need to see a doctor." "Oh, I already have. There's what was it? Was it a nurse practitioner, Donna, that came into where she lived, the independent living?" I think it was a nurse practitioner who would come.
It
And
was.
yeah. And if you needed to see, it was as a guy, if you needed to see him, you just let them know at the front desk and they would make sure that he, came to your apartment. So she's
Right.
already seen the doctor and he gave me a prescription and I'm taking them. Okay. And so that was that. And maybe, what would you say, Donna, 10 days, 14 days later, she goes, "I have another UTI." I said, "Another?"
She didn't take all of her meds from the
Yeah.
first UTI. She took them for
Okay.
about 3 or 4 days,
And
felt
then
better,
stop.
and stopped.
Yeah. So it
And
didn't
I didn't
completely
know
cure.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I only knew because I was on the phone with her and she says, "No, no, no." I said, "Well, this is the same one." "No, no, this is another one." I said, "Well, you should have just now been, finishing up your medication." "Oh, I only took it for about 4 days. I can't take those pills, are too big. I can't swallow them."
And you knew right then what had happened.
Exactly. She did not
Yeah.
take medication. And that's where if she assisted living, they would have handed her pill and
Yeah.
told them no, which she could have told them, "No, I'm not taking that anymore. I feel fine." They would have let me or my sister know, "Hey, your mom refused her medication today." And then we
Yeah.
could have on it and said, "Okay, we either need to convince her to take it or she needs to get maybe a liquid or you need to crush it into,
Yeah.
applesauce or something." Uh,
Yeah.
Well,
but
and I told her to get a liquid when she complained about the pills. I
Right.
finally got that out of her that all those pills are too big. You can half them. You can mash them and put them in something. Well, that's just awful. You can get liquid antibiotic. And
Yeah.
she said, "Oh, really? Well, I didn't know that." So I just had a feeling, and I
mhm,
went into a restroom and I opened up the medicine cabinet, and there was the bottle of liquid antibiotic. And I
right.
Mm.
took it out and I said, "Mama, this is right date. It was the right stuff, everything."
Yeah.
And she still kind of acted surprised until finally she said, "Well, that stuff just tastes so awful." So
Yeah.
it was open. She had taken at least 1 dose of it, but that's all she would take. And it was left up to her because they don't have nurses that go around
Right.
in
Right.
Right.
those places, and the doctor's not going to make her take it. It's up to her, and she didn't
So
want it. She never liked it.
And I don't know what she said to you. She would shut me down. So I would say, I would a little bit get onto her and say, "Mom, you have to take all of your medication." And after about the second or third time I would say it, she would come back with, "Well, I didn't realize you were the mother now."
oh Lord, yeah. Yeah.
I would go, "Okay."
Yep. So didn't things progress? Because I remember, Sonya, when you were flying out to Texas, you were actually going to go out there because your mom had gotten, worse, and wasn't you going to finally talk about possibly moving her
Right.
into a memory care, or what was, because that was
Yeah, memory care. Her mind was fine all the way to the end. That was the problem
mm,
as far as that went. But yeah, so then she ended up, after not taking the liquid, with yet a third UTI, and she was very, very sick.
oh wow.
And that's where I had a phone call from, I want to say it was the executive director of the independent living, who had come down to her apartment and called me from my mother's phone and said, "Your mom is very sick right now. I don't know if you're aware of that." And I was like, "Well, I guess I'm kind of aware." No, she's really sick. And I could hear her in the background kind of moaning. And I
Hmm.
think she needs to go to the hospital. She's like, "I absolutely do." I said, "Okay, so please call the ambulance." Hospital. And of course, my sister met them at the hospital. So that was the first round of being in the hospital and then going to a rehab.
Mm.
So that was the first time. And then from the rehab, and I'll let you kind of, Donna, you were up there with her at the rehab, and you just had a
Yes.
that she was like not getting better and that she needed more help than what this rehab was doing. You know, there's not all rehabs are the same.
Right.
Really great ones, and there are some that are really not so great. And this just happened to be one of those that wasn't quite so great.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there was one nurse there. She was she a CNA, I guess, Donna? And you said something about, do you guys know if anyone does private home care? And she said, I do. And you got her number, which was so great you did that. And you told me about it the very day. And I said, a private caregiver, is she that bad? Because I'm here and I'm hearing, but I'm not there to see. Yes,
Right.
I'm that bad. So the rehab only kept her for, is it 21 days, I believe? That your insurance rehab.
That's what they'll pay for.
And so they discharged her. And when she discharged, she said, I think maybe your mother needs assisted living. And I said, okay. So that's where we began to talk about living. But in the meantime, my sister brings her back to her independent living. We get that caregiver in place. So that helped for a little while. I guess it was honestly just putting a Band-Aid on to it.
Yeah.
It was not going to be a perfect fix. So from there, she ended up sick again. And I don't know how she ended up with another UTI, but she did. She really couldn't walk, as I recall, Donna. All of a sudden, she couldn't walk.
Where do you think that was from?
Donna just being weak.
Do what?
Her not being able to walk.
That started slowly but surely. She was walking with a walker already anyway. And then she just got a little weaker and a little weaker. She kept having UTIs. By that point, you know, a UTI will get used to a particular antibiotic and it will come back stronger.
What causes UTIs to be that repetitive? Is it lack of water, or is it just what?
That was a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sonya, your audio is flipping in and out. I don't know if it's picking up an echo.
I didn't hear what you said, Sonya.
I said I think it was lack of water. Mom did not drink it.
She didn't drink enough water?
No, she didn't. She used to, and then she kind of stopped that. She wouldn't eat well. She didn't like anything. She wouldn't drink much water.
Yeah. So what ended up, you know, because it wasn't too far back your mom passed, correct? February. And so, because I remember you were flying out to Texas. So was this the leading, was it you know, the UTIs just making it worse? Because when you flew out there, you wasn't expecting that, correct?
No. I knew that you needed to move at least to assisted living. Finally, the independent living place did say to me, your mother is not IL appropriate. That was the first time I ever said it. So I did the proper, you know, protocol to put in her move out notice and began to discuss with Donna, hey, we need to figure something out. And at this point, the hospital, and we knew from hospital she was going to rehab. We did get her into a better rehab. Thank goodness. It was a much better rehab. And that's
Right.
really saw the difference. They were trying very hard to work with her at this second rehab. So again, this is where I do the divide and conquer thing. I started taking all the paperwork. I did everything necessary to get her moved out of her independent living, get movers in place to move everything, just take care of all of that. And at the same time, we started looking at, and that's where I got an agency like yours involved, Mark. I asked at independent living, I said, do you have any for a referral company who could help me look at the different
Yeah.
and they recommended someone, very sweet, very knowledgeable lady. And in the background, was getting worse and worse and worse. And so at the rehab, they said to me, "I'm not sure your mother's even assisted living appropriate. It might be skilled nursing because
Wow.
she won't even walk. So she's technically."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Okay." So it went from
Well, at that point, she needed skilled nursing. She had gone down a little at a time, every day. And she really needed skilled nursing or hospice, one of the two.
Right.
And, I took care of my end and Sonya took care of hers.
right.
Yeah.
She
Called a home health company to get them involved. They came out one time and they could tell immediately not else hospice. And the nurse with the home health was trying to kind of beat around the bush, like say certain things, but not really get to the point. And finally, I said, "My mom need hospice," and she said, "How did you know that?" I said, I work in this."
Yeah.
So she said, "I'm afraid to bring it up," and I understand that.
Yeah.
Get on.
Yeah. Sonya, are you on Wi-Fi?
Yes.
Okay. Your audio is it's kind of fading in and out, and it's getting a little bit worse.
It's going in and out.
If you can, if you're on Wi-Fi and you're on your cell phone, just turn off the Wi-Fi and let the network pick it up. That might take care of it.
Is that better?
There, let's see how that goes. All right.
Is that better?
I can hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you.
I turned Wi-Fi off.
Okay.
Would you like me to?
Yeah, it's still stuttering. I don't know what the audio is doing. But so when you had flew out to Texas back in February, you were going to actually place her, correct?
Yes, to get everything cleaned out of her independent living apartment and to get her somewhere.
Yeah. And so, and did she just crash? I mean, what happened there when you were?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes.
Go ahead and turn. Yeah, go ahead and turn the Wi-Fi back on and see if it connection gets better. We're having technical day, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. Okay.
There we go. Okay, let it and it should be okay. So anyway, when you flew out to Texas, what was the event that took place when you got out to Texas?
So you mean the reason I went out there
Yeah.
at that point? So it was to get her completely out of the apartment because we knew she was not going back there. We just didn't know where she was going from rehab. And just before I left out there, I had, it took a few days to get everything in place and all the paperwork sent in to IL and everything. And during that time at rehab, Mom fell and broke her hip.
Oh wow. Okay, rehab.
Yep, at rehab she fell and she broke her hip. And back to the hospital, had no choice but to operate. And I'll be honest, she really never fully came out of that.
Okay, so that was kind of what started the downward spiral, so to speak. And
Yes.
And I apologize to you guys know, but Sonya, your connection, something is causing a lag in the audio and stuff. So we hear part of what you're saying, and then the other part fades out. So if you want to kind of pick up, Donna, when that happened, what was the turn of events from just how long did that go on before she unfortunately passed?
I want to say maybe a week before they had to make her leave, maybe 2 weeks, and she was discharged to my house in
Okay.
hospice.
Okay.
She still had
Wow.
her hip bandage on, and I still had to take care of that. But other than that, she was just a hospice patient. When
Wow.
she very first got here, she knew what was going on, though. She knew she was in my place, and she was still a little bit confused about certain things. Like she's got a collection of teapots. And of
Mm.
course, I took all the teapots. I think Sonya might have taken one or two, but I'm not sure. I've got most of them. And
Yeah.
Mama wanted them up to where she could see them. She said, "And I put my teapots right up there." And she pointed.
Mm.
"Okay, Mama, I will." Because they were in the kitchen. She couldn't see them.
Yeah.
But she knew she had them, and she knew where she was at, and she knew where she wanted them.
Yeah.
She still wanted her teapots there.
Yeah.
So she became a little, I thought she will get better, and I
Mm.
was just wrong.
Wow.
I always have oh, she'll get better when she gets here. No,
Yeah.
no, she didn't.
Yeah. Well, what was it like for the two of you? Because being in the business, what was the unexpected emotions of it being your own? Even going back with your father, right? I mean, so did it help with the empathy level with dealing with other families? Like Tanya, when people come in, and Donna, when you come across, it kind of brings a new empathy side to it, doesn't it, when you experience it firsthand?
Yeah, definitely does. When I'm
Yeah.
dealing with family, whether it's assisted living or memory care, I can relate to where they are.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Was there anything you do wanna add before we sign off here that you may not have thought about that you wanna mention? Any, advice or tips you wanna share or any personal experience?
Well, it's very much. It's more emotional when it's you or your family.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, I'd taken care of gobs of hospice patients in different places, in hospitals and in nursing homes. They've been on hospice too. I can't even count the number of people that I've seen die, the number of families that I've had to deal with, and you deal with them. And sometimes
yeah.
it hurts more than others because you got closer to that patient or that family,
Mhm.
but it's not the same as
Yeah,
if it's your mother or your father at all.
yeah,
This was
yeah,
very emotional for me, and I had to just sit there and let the two hospice aides come in every morning. And I tried to help because I'm just used to that. Get up and
yeah,
help turn, help move, it was just kind of in my nature. And they were like, "No, no, we can do this." Well, I know you can, but I just felt funny sitting there
yeah,
and letting them do
yeah,
everything. Um, but one day in particular, for some reason, I just was it was my crying day, I guess. And
yeah.
I sit there and I was just crying. And they came in and I
Mhm.
said, "Today, I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to
Yeah,
help." "Oh, we don't want you to." I said, "I know you don't, but I'm not able to today."
yeah,
And with patients, you're just not quite that emotional.
yeah, yeah,
Watching your own mother die is
yeah,
different.
yeah,
Totally.
yeah. And Sonya, I know that you see people all the time, like almost daily that's coming into one of the communities, right? And then so I know it's almost like you kinda see yourself in the families depending on the circumstances, 'cause it's like, my mom's home with hospice right now, and we've expected her to pass 4 times already this year. I've done the crawling in bed with her, saying goodbye, and then she would kinda rally, but now with the combination of being on the morphine and the other drugs they're giving her, it progresses the dementia, so that's getting worse, and it's sad, you don't know how to cope with all those emotions, how to deal with them, Sonya, you wanna add anything?
It is. I'm just gonna say because for the most part, I closely with my sister, themselves. Most families work together very well. sometimes you see those that don't. And I think, I just want to so badly say, you guys need to put this aside and together. That's what my sister did, and we certainly in an absolute, like a hurricane.
Yeah.
Fast. It all happened in 2.5 months.
Yeah.
From the first to past, and we just literally did work together. And I don't recall us having a cross word ever.
That's awesome.
No, we didn't argue about anything.
Sure. I felt like hearing, and I took care of all the banking stuff, the funeral, any paperwork. I took care of it.
And I wanted her to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, listen,
and
this
I
is
took care of the physical care, and Sonya wanted me to.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you two coming on and joining and sharing your story and getting on this. I hate that we had these bombardment of technical difficulties. None of us can control technology. It just seems to do its own thing. Sometimes storms were passing through in Sonia's town, and we're not too far away, and they've hit where I'm at, and they knocked us offline. And I know we've had some connection issues during this, but I want to thank you both for coming on here and sharing your stories. So with that said, we will sign off here, and until the next show, we will see everybody later.